Welcome to the Land Your Bet Sports Betting Podcast. It's Thursday here. We only have 5 games, but I actually have a ton more bets than I had yesterday for you. It was a long day yesterday. I was pretty much out of pocket after making that video. And then 2 of the bets that I put out were from a game that got canceled for really sad reasons that we won't get into right now with the Dubs and Jazz as they postpone that game. But we will move on to at least talk about the one bet that we had that didn't hit because the Bucks, as a number of people pointed out on social media, hoed us. They hoed us. They hoed everybody, including themselves, embarrassed themselves, really got beat badly by Cleveland there. Dame did go under his assists, but he definitely did not go over the points, as nobody really went over their points for the Bucks in that one, and they got walloped and only scored 95 points in that game. So we only went 0-1. We only had the one unit that we lost on the year now. Still looking good with the Playa prop, 17.6. We're making our way back on the sides and totals there, minus 8.4 units, but we are climbing back. We're 2-0 in our last ones there. So we'll help get that up so that we can get this 9.2 units up as well on top of it all. So let's get right into it, man. Not much to talk about from yesterday, but now we have plenty to talk about, including Mr. Vince Williams Jr., who's back on the show because they didn't really raise his props at all, just 1 point. And that's in large part because the Warriors are not the Minnesota Timberwolves, who are very good at limiting shooting guards if you want to consider Vince Williams a shooting guard. But he goes to the basket so much that we're going to talk about him having success against Minnesota here. Over 12.5 points is the core line, minus 102. When I say the core line, I'm talking about the normal line that is offered by FanDuel for his points is 12.5. But if you cycle through the alternative lines or the alt lines that you can take for his prop, 15 plus points is available on FanDuel at plus 165, putting a half a unit on that. The 18 plus points is on DraftKings. If you want to take it there, that's where they offer 18 or more points. That's plus 330. Quarter unit for me on that. If you would also like to ladder 20 points or more for Vince Williams Jr., that is only available on FanDuel, and that is plus 650. And I don't hate 0.1 units on that one. I will just say that Minnesota is very good at limiting shooting guards, like a top 3 team, really. And at home, very much so, right? The same concept, even better at home, at defense on home than they are on the road. So with all that said, the 18 points is kind of where I would put a reasonable ceiling for him. If you want to be a little bit more unreasonable and go 20 plus points, like I said, for 0.1 units, $10, $1, whatever you want, I get it. Like whatever your unit size is, 0.1 units, that would work for me. But what we're talking about with Vince here is just a really good situation. He's coming off that 3-year contract sign. So he's a part of this team now. Like he's not a dude that's going up and down from the G League. He's a guy that's going to come in and he's going to get minutes. And he's gotten minutes when guys have been in like Desmond Bane, but now everybody's out. And that's been the case in the last 2 games, 37 minutes a night, 20.5 points, including that 24-point performance last game against the Dubs, which surprised everybody as they won that game. And he shot the ball 12 times in that one. He's shooting it 12 times a game right now over the last 2, and will continue to shoot at least about that many shots moving forward, if not a few more. He's gone over in his last 4 when Desmond Bane doesn't play because he is playing a similar position. He's not quite a playmaker as Desmond Bane was to a degree, not a very good one, but he was still put in that position. Vince Williams is playing a lot more off ball, which is fine. We're very happy to have him with more space to work with after guys are hopefully able to break their guy down off the dribble, or at least just find Vince Williams in space for him to do his thing. Super athletic guy that's getting to the rim really at a really strong pace here. And obviously that's going to be much tougher against Minnesota. So we might need him to hit a few more jump shots, but the volume is there between the minutes and the attempts. Like he's getting shots off. So we've got to take him to get, I mean, look, if he's going to get 12 shots and score 13 points, that's still mildly efficient. It's not like the most efficient game, but if he goes 6 for 12, 7 for 12, we're in a good spot because he's going to get a free throw or 2, get a 3-pointer in there as well. So you get him over that number. If he has a better game than that and goes 8 for 12, 9 for 12 even, right? Now we're talking about easy 18 points or 15 plus points if he's able to hit those types of shots, right? And with, like I said, 1-3, which is about what he's averaging. We don't need him to go crazy from there. We don't need him to go crazy from the free throw line either. He's hit a few jump shots and at least gotten to the rim when his man is able to pull the guys, the centers away from the basket. And now we have Xavier Tillman. We have no more Bismack Biyombo. We have a lot more free-flowing offense. We just saw them play at 103 pace against the Dubs, who play faster than the Timberwolves. I get that. But the point is Memphis is playing faster than they normally would play, right? They were at home, and they still dictated the pace to be about 103 against the Warriors in this last game. And that's what I would continue to expect, is that they at least want to play a bit faster with smaller lineups and more free-flowing and space. So we'll take him on this big ladder play here for Vince Williams Jr. to kick it off. We got 1.75 units, as you can see on that for him. Then we're going to another game here where Oklahoma City is taking on Utah. Because Utah would be on a back-to-back, but they missed yesterday against the Dubs. As we talked about, that game was postponed. So they're coming in pretty fresh, but I'm going with some Thunder stuff here. I've got Jalen Williams over 24.5 points and assists. Going minus 120 there for a full unit. This is a really good spot for him, and we're starting to see this trend of him being a bit more of a playmaker. So that's why I like the assists thrown into this bet because of that. So let's talk about why. The Utah is allowing the 7th most points per game, the 4th most assists per game to small forwards. I would classify J-Dub here as a small forward, even though it's a very fluid offense for Oklahoma City in general. But still, Jalen Williams is in that position of on the wing, driving in for sure, like a small forward will do, but also for those open looks from 3 out on the wing, like I said. Now, add to the fact that he's been a little bit more of a point forward at times, especially when he's with the second unit, which is what we've seen. And the last roughly 7 games, we'll say 5 games because his numbers look better there. But really for the last 7, he's been a lot more of the second unit point guard, if you will, right? And we see a lot less Josh Giddey doing that. We see a lot less Josh Giddey on the floor at the same time as these guys. His numbers and his minutes, most importantly for Giddey, have dropped in the last 5. About 26 per game on the season, down to about 23 or so. Not a huge drop, but enough. And the minutes, when he's getting the minutes, are a little bit different as well. Like I said, J-Dub here is getting a lot more of these point guard second unit minutes than we're seeing Giddey get moving at this point as of late. And I'm going to believe in that. Coach Daigneault there, probably coach of the year, does mess with his lineups a lot. Sometimes they're inconsistent. It's kind of annoying, but we can depend on J-Dub and Chet and Shai. And really, Shai and J-Dub more than Chet even. Sometimes Chet gets 25 minutes if he's not needed. He is still coming off a full season of being missed. Shout out my guy who called me out for saying Shai and not Shay. The correct pronunciation of Shai, the name spelled that way, is Shai. Sorry. So, and he's also said personally, I don't care how you say it, but my mama named him Shai. So if my mama call him Shai, I'm gonna call him Shai. Let's move on to Shai, because he's my third best bet here. Leading scorer of the game. This is what we call a bankroll builder, right? You just take a little bit, more than the full unit, and you add it to a bet that has not great odds, but you feel is really likely to happen. And I think there's a very big disparity here between SGA's his points prop, the next leading points prop guy, which is Markkanen, and what this is priced at, right? So Markkanen has a points prop of 24.5 points, and Shai has his at 31.5. So who's going to be the leading scorer here, right? Like Markkanen's getting 30 minutes, and he's the only dude on Utah getting 30 minutes. So with the balanced approach that Will Hardy takes, the coach for the Jazz, to how he plays minutes for guys, especially in the last roughly 6 or 7 games since 10 games, but Jordan Clarkson came back from injury, and now he's back in his 6-man role, right? And he's getting 29 minutes, but he's not getting 33 or 34, and Lowry's not even getting that many minutes. Now, they've had some blowout wins that have helped them play fewer minutes. At the same time, Colin Sexton's getting minutes, Chris Dunn is getting minutes, Agbaji is getting minutes as well. I'm going to mess his first name up every time I try it. So let's just go with Agbaji. Agbaji's going to get it as well. And minutes, like I'm saying, like 15 to 20. Olynyk is still on this squad until he gets traded. So everybody getting minutes for Utah really just takes away from the ability for them to contribute a leading scorer. SGA here is taking way more shots than anybody else on his team. It's not even close. If you want to go for the 31.5, I'm fine with that. But guys like J-Dub, second on the team in shots, Chet as well, both at about 13 field goal attempts. SGA here at about 22, and that doesn't count the 7 free throw attempts that he's getting, 6.5 free throw attempts that he's getting per game, right? And so that's why I love the matchup for him against Utah more than anything. Like the leading scorer is just a little bankroll builder. If you want to take 31.5 points for him, I'm also good with that. We've gotten a little bit of a value on it because he's gone under that number a couple times as of late, which has surprised a lot of people. And his prop was up at about 34.5 points before they put it down to about 31.5 now, which like I said, I would hit the over on that because of the way that Shai's going to be attacking the basket. We know how he plays, right? This is really a bad matchup for this Utah defense, which gives up a ton of free throws. They give up a lot of fast break points, and they're good at limiting threes more than anything. When you talk about their guard play and guard defense, their perimeter defense, yeah, it's good. It is good because they compress those guys, knowing that like they've got shot blockers when Walker Kessler's in the game, and he's been splitting some minutes there. Like it's a rotation with he and their backups at this point. But either way, like the defense is not one that is tailor made for stopping SGA here, who's going to get to the line a ton. And you've seen, like I've been saying, like other guys on the other team are the ones leading the game in scoring when they play the Jazz because of that rotation for the Jazz that's so heavy. Until they blew the doors off of that Pacers team the other night and won by like 30. Right before that, everybody was had the leading scorer on the opposition rather than the Jazz team. So feel good about Shai coming in and doing that again. Call him Shea if you want. Doesn't matter. I don't care. Let's move on to this bet here, which I really, really like. And I'm taking an under on the team total for Indiana and the Pacers at the Kings here. Full disclosure, I hit this at 119.5, and I'm going to hit it again at 120.5. I'm not using that negative CLV, if you will, as a bad thing for me. I don't really care. Keep pushing it up, and I'll keep hitting under. There's no Bruce Brown. He was traded in that Pascal Siakam trade that hopefully you all saw yesterday. I didn't see it until like 3 hours after it happened because, like I said, I was completely out of pocket for a while. But that trade is now the reason that Bruce Brown, that's who I mean by BB, is not there. Also questionable, Halliburton, Mathurin, Nesmith, Obi Toppin, all questionable to play in this game. I don't know that we'll see. I know Halliburton probably wants to play. I can't imagine more than two of those guys are available. So we're going to see a lot of Miles Turner, as you can see here. We're going to see a lot of TJ McConnell. That's all fine, but the game's just going to be slower, man. Like in the 7 games without Halliburton, all 7 games besides this last one, they had, even this last one, they had Bruce Brown, right? Bruce Brown's on-off numbers are what he does to the pace of this team is almost as significant as Tyrese Halliburton. Without Halliburton, they're playing at about 100 pace. With him, they play at the 103 pace. Same concept for Bruce Brown, 102 pace with him, 100 pace without him. Like other than Halliburton, he's the one that pushes the pace more than anybody. He's second fastest in terms of pace of play when he's on the floor. He's not going to be on the floor for this team anymore, right? Now he's on a different squad. So without him or Hallie, come on, man. Like the fact that they, in the 7 games they played without Halliburton, they got the 115.5. They've gone over one time, and it was against that the Hawks team, which just is terrible. That's the bottom 5 defense. They didn't go over against Detroit, bottom 5 defense. They didn't go over against Utah, bottom 10 defense. So yeah, I don't like the Pacers to even go over against the Kings, who aren't great at home at defense, and they score a ton of points and they just push the pace. But I think this has blowout possibilities. So I just don't think the Pacers are ripe for getting the points here. If anything, they're going to have to rely on a bit of defense, and I just don't know that they really have it, especially against this Kings team. So we're going under in this game, and obviously I'm talking about liking the Kings to win, but I just can't trust them more than anything right now. So if the Kings do lose this game, I still think it's because it's a low-scoring game, to be honest with you, and their defense is just their offense doesn't come to play. But I don't think Pacers offense comes to play no matter what. So another team total. We got 2 total bets here, and they're both team totals, but we got an under for Indy and an over for Memphis, right? Which is hilarious that I'm taking an under for maybe the best offense in the league when Halliburton's in there, and an over for maybe the worst offense in the league when Ja is not in there. And now no Desmond Bane as well, and a number of other guys. But this is 101 points. That's just, I put a half unit on it. If I look dumb, then I look dumb, whatever. But I wanted to get in on the action of having at least a half a unit on Memphis to win, to score this 101 points, right? This is an NBA offense. No matter what you say, there are more than just G League guys on this team. I trash talked them probably a little too much when I took a Draymond Green under the other day. It hit, but it didn't hit because it was a blowout for the Dubs, right? They actually lost the game because Memphis beat them, scoring 116 points in that game. And this is just another good spot for them to get those points, even though it's not a great matchup. It's a huge letdown spot for Minnesota. And that's what I'm focused on. Like, they just barely beat Detroit. Now they're the back-to-back, and they're in this game with a team that they're probably looking at with a similar level of respect. Like, Memphis, institutionally, much better organization. It should be said. This is not Portland. This is not Detroit. This is a team with a strong front office and a strong coach and still some strong NBA players. And they need their due, and mea culpa for being pretty much over the top with how much I was talking trash on the players they have left. I use that as a reason to bet on Vince Williams points. It still worked because Vince Williams is good, but there's enough here. So they're going to, the 101 points for them, like they've done this in 3 of 4 without Ja versus Minnesota, who's had this good of a defense since last year when they were doing this without Ja, like I said. So everything's going to increase a bit too. Like, the pace is going to go up now for this team, which I talked about with Vince Williams, because of the fact that Xavier Tillman is getting minutes, and Bismack Biyombo's not on this squad anymore. So they're playing a lot smaller. When Triple J is out there, we know that they can move the ball up and down the floor a lot as well because of his versatility. And so, I am relying on him to be out there and pick up a lot of the attention from the guys down low, like Rudy Gobert and company. And then for Xavier Tillman to pull Rudy away from the basket, or Cat or Naz Reid whenever they're guarding each other in those instances. Like I said, the pace should go up because of that smaller. The numbers lean towards Minnesota gives up a ton of points on these back-to-backs. Big time overs with a ton of 123.5 points per game that they're giving up on their back-to-backs this year. One was at home. Still gave up 111 points to LA, to the Lakers there. And so, yeah, I mean, look, there's nothing here to go like, yeah, Jacob Gilliard and everybody's going to be awesome in this game. But I think that they're going to be able to get the 101 points with the NBA squad that they're going to put out there. So last one here is another half unit, and it's on Emmanuel Quickley to go under 20.5 points. And he just scares me because there's no more Pascal, and I don't know what it is yet. So there's a bit of unknown with exactly what this team is going to look like without Pascal. But my lean here is strongly to go under, so I put a half a unit on it at minus 109 on Caesars. And that's because it's similar stuff to what we just saw with Miami. Now, here's the situation, right? Yesterday, Pascal gets traded. They play Miami, and it's just sort of like a rah-rah moment where, he's not here anymore. Addition by subtraction, not because they're better without Pascal, but just because it was like, we have nothing to lose. Let's go out there and like rally around this trade, right? Okay, great. So now they score 121 points against Miami, and that came with Gary Trent scoring 28 points on ridiculous three-point shooting. I believe he had 8 or 9 of them yesterday to get to his 28 points. So if you think that's going to be the case again, then fine. But it's going to be a similar style of play where Caruso is going to come in and do what we always talk about: limit the other team's point guard from scoring, not necessarily assisting, but from scoring. And we do have use case in terms of Miami's defense last night is a very similar style of defense as Toronto. Pressure the guards, overplay, force the ball out of the point guard's hands. Chicago limits teams to the point guards to the fewest points per game, as I've now mentioned to you a number of times that I've gone under on the opposing point guard for Chicago. Plus, Miami is in the same boat, right? They also limit points for point guards, but they give up assists to point guards. Chicago, same concept, which we've talked about too. Assists will be there for Emmanuel Quickley tonight. Points will not be there. Rather than get cute with it and add the assist, I'm just going with the under for the points at 20.5 with what I expect to be a slower pace. Even though like they played at a slow pace last night, they needed 130 offensive rating. Like I said, shooting bananas, nearly 50% from three. I just don't think it's going to happen again. Like that's positive regression negative regression to the max here that's coming. So that's what I'm expecting, is that regression, a little bit more of a letdown against a team that's coming in, in Chicago that really wants to slow it down a ton and is going to continue to play slower, choppier games. Like I would actually lean under 227, even though the Raptors were playing a bit faster. I just don't trust it right now. And I don't trust Quickley to be able to score. He went 3 for 6 last night and still only had 17 from deep. He still only had 17 points, just 2 free throw attempts. I just don't know what I'm getting. And I know that Chicago is going to play really good defense and force the ball out of point guard's hands. So I'm going to go under for Quickley here with just a half a unit. And that is all the time that I have for you guys in this one. Let's go over all 6 bets, including the ladder play here for Vince Will. We got over 12.5 points for Vince Williams Jr., minus 102, 15 plus points, plus 165, and 18 plus points, plus 330. If you want plus 650 on him to get 20 plus points, that's available on FanDuel, and I don't hate it either if you want to put a little bit on that. Jalen Williams over 24.5 points and assists combined in his sort of increased playmaker role, minus 120 with a unit. SGA leading scorer, that should be 1.2 units. Come on, man, I put 1.2 on it. Minus 165 on DraftKings is what I got that at, so that should still be there for you guys. Indiana team total, 4th bet here, under 120.5 points for them as a team against the Kangs. Memphis team total over 100.5. This is hilarious. Minus 115, a full unit on those 2 bets. And then just a half a unit on Quickley. Oh, I'm sorry. That should be a half unit as well, y'all. Either way, I'll have it correct in the records. But these bets are still live. So Emmanuel Quickley under 20.5 points, half a unit for him. All right. Like I said, all the time I have for you guys. Appreciate you all following along. We got a bunch of new subscribers and followers. Let's get on a little heater here and keep it going. If you would, jump in the comments. I want to hear what you guys are saying, what you playing. I'm sorry that I was MIA yesterday. Had a little bit of stuff come up, like I said. So I was out of pocket after all that stuff changed, even though it was a big slate. I've got a ton of bets on a smaller slate here, but I still like what I'm looking at. So let's get that money. And until I see you next, happy betting.